I heard this on the way into the sanctuary, and I kept thinking about how I could fit this into my talk, but I don't know how I can. But typically, I'm pretty good at that, but it's not hitting me. But I feel it needs to be shared. You all know about the flooding in eastern Kentucky. Renee, most of you know who Renee is. Renee, just wave your hand. She has family in eastern Kentucky. As a matter of fact, she has a sister, 93 years old, who was removed from her house by boat and was being pulled by her niece.
No, by some of the men in the town.
Some of the men in the town.
They all pitched in.
And what was the statement? I hope we have the house mic on. What was the statement that your 93-year-old sister said about being?
First of all, she said, I never thought I'd live this old to see something like this happen. And she said, I guess I'll be okay. I've lived 93 years. I'm just going to keep going. And you can look it up on my Facebook. There is an actual blog on clip. There's a clip on of her being rescued and her talking under L.J. Landrum, her granddaughter, Landrum. And I wish I'd have told you earlier. Maybe he could have our man back there could have pulled it up. But anyway.
That's okay. We're going to remember that. And
okay. And thank you all for your prayers and help. And she's fine. Her daughter, grandson, girlfriend, and 2 dogs next door all made it out. Thanks to the people in the little town of Jackson, Kentucky. They're expecting more rain, so keep praying for the people down there. Thank you.
thank you for sharing about your sister, Renee, and your family to know they're all safe. And I as well went to college down there, and I checked in with some of my college roommates, and they were busy taking water, mostly water, to get water to the people there. So prayer works, and there's just a lot of areas in our world that need prayer. So I couldn't figure out how to fit that in, but I wanted you to know that it's not just a news story, that there are people here who have family there. And so thank you, God, for that. So today I want to talk about, are your spiritual arteries clogged? I couldn't fit all that on the sign, so did you see the signs as you come in? Clogged arteries. I'm sure there are people wondering, what is that church about? Well, I'm here to talk to you about not only your physical arteries, but I'm here to talk about your spiritual arteries as well, and the correlation of the two. So I'm going to start out first with physical arteries, because I have a story about my dad in the 1990s, and he was diagnosed with heart disease. And he was able at that time, the hospital was doing a pilot program called the Dean Ornish program. If anybody's familiar with that name. Dr. Dean Ornish is a doctor of internal medicine and the founder of Preventative Medicine Research Institute in California. He believed and wrote a book that clogged arteries, artery disease, heart disease could be stopped, or even better, could be reversed. And this was mind-breaking information. And he was out to prove this by putting these programs in various hospitals and seeing how it worked. And my dad was able to be a candidate in that program. So Dad was on board with this, but he didn't know what he was getting into. But he wanted to be able to not have heart surgery, right? So this, how do I want to say it? Yeah, it became a family event, and they encouraged families to be there with the patient. So we would go to this program at the hospital twice a week, and I know we went for at least 2 months. And my mom, my sister, my dad, and I would all four attend this. And so the agenda of the program was 4 things that they believed and proved that heart disease could be stopped and, yes, even reversed. 4 things: diet, going to an almost all plant-based diet, very little meat. Number 2 was exercise, just walk or even a stationary bike. It was just about moving. Number 3, this is in the 1990s. My father at this time is probably in his mid to late 70s. Meditation. Him and my mom didn't even know what that word meant. And number 4, talk therapy. Yeah, that was another one that neither one of them had ever done. It was very interesting. All 4 of these components were the curriculum at every meeting: diet, exercise, meditation, and talk therapy. And to witness the people who went through that program and what it did, and people were in there that lived to tell about it because they were in doing this book before the program ever was allowed to be in the hospitals, and the amazing results of this. So that's the physical arteries part. Now, I wish Mary Haley were here today, and I hope she's on Facebook with us. That Mary Haley gave me an article that was written in 1989, and it started out with a story of the author going to visit friends down in the foothills of the Blue Ridge Mountains in Virginia. And when she arrived, the owner was in the middle of installing new pipes in the bathroom because the pipes had been clogged from the minerals from the water down there, eventually built up deposits and clogged the pipes. So he had to replace the pipes. And she started thinking about that's the same as our own arteries, our physical arteries, the same thing. We get built up with deposits. We call it plaque, right? And we can clog our arteries to where it can be a very serious situation. Is that right? Am I saying that somewhat correctly? Because I have a little experience with my father on that. But did you ever think about metaphysically that we have spiritual arteries? Spiritual arteries that are our lifeline to God. Your spiritual arteries are your lifeline to spirit. Maybe our spiritual arteries, that lifeline to good, to God, get clogged by accumulations of old hurts, emotional scar tissue, resentment, anger. I guess the list could kind of go on. Maybe some of you even acknowledge some of that in the meditation today. We develop unforgiveness clots. Think about it. We all do. We all have issues that happened even when we were in grade school or even younger, and we have them in the high school, we have them in our work life, we have them in our family issues. There are things that happen, situations that happen, and have we forgiven? I would have told you I forgave it all. That's another whole talk. But it's the truth, you know? We develop unforgiveness clots, just like blood clots in our circulatory system, and both of those types of clots are fatal, including your spiritual arteries, can be fatal because you lose your joy. You lose it. Let's show that first slide, please. Our emotions, you might want to take this picture. Our emotions stay clouded with anger, insecurity, self-pity, and bitterness. It is these unforgiving attitudes and old wounds that block our arteries, our spiritual arteries. I'm going to say that one again. Our emotions stay clouded with anger, insecurity, self-pity, and bitterness. It is the unforgiving attitudes and old wounds that block our progress. Now, I don't know about you, but I can definitely speak for myself on this. I feel, I fell in love when I first came into this Unity Church. And for the first 2 years, I fell in love with all of this positivity, right? Positive affirmations. I was all about those affirmations, right? I only wanted to talk positivity, and I wanted to cancel out any negative emotion. People would come up to me and say, man, I'm having a bad day, and this is how I'd react. Cancel, cancel. Anybody grow up with that thinking? Some of my teachers out at Unity Village taught this. Cancel, cancel. Cancel, cancel. She prided herself on doing the X. Cancel any negative thought, word, or action. Cancel it. Now, at some point that worked. But I started canceling people out, right? I'm doing it now. Somebody comes to me and just say, no, I'm having a bad day. They're hurting. And I'm like, cancel, cancel. What was I doing? Shutting that emotion down in them. You're not supposed to feel that way. Oh, that brought back childhood memories. Kathy, little girls aren't supposed to feel that way. Cancel, cancel. My mother didn't know that term, but she said it in another way, right? I started to feel I was more enlightened than others on this journey. I don't know if any of you have done this, but I'm admitting to you, I did. Okay? This is in my beginning 2 years. And I'm taking maybe a class or two, but I'm starting to feel like I'm a little bit like above, right? So number 2, I started to feel, I was a little more enlightened than others. And so I didn't have a lot of time for those people. I was only going to hang out with the enlightened group. Yep. And if you weren't on my road to enlightenment, right? I only want to talk to spiritual people. Am I the only one that's done this? You don't have to admit it. You don't, because I get it. But then one of my minister teachers used this statement, metaphysical malpractice. And I was like, Then she included these words, spiritual bypass. Now she had my attention. What was spiritual bypass? Metaphysical malpractice. Many of us spiritual teachers can use metaphysical malpractice by using all of this positivity and not allowing people to have their real feelings. Am I making sense with that at all? Okay, so spiritual bypass, right? So I found this, and I like it. How do you know if you are spiritually bypassing? Oh, I fit almost every one of these. I did. Not focusing on the here and now, living in the spiritual realm much of the time. Overemphasizing the positive and avoiding the negative. That is big on metaphysical malpractice. when we trying to tell people to avoid the negative. Number 3, being self-righteous about the concept of enlightenment. Someday you'll get there. Someday you'll get there with me, but you're not there quite yet. Being overly detached. That makes sense? Overly detached. Being overly idealistic. Number 6, here's that, having feelings of entitlement. Once I got my feet on the ground, and I went, and you've seen me do this demonstration. Once I got my feet out of the clouds, so to speak, and got my feet back on the ground, I realized I needed to have one foot in the spiritual realm and one foot here on earth school. I was trying to live my life here. And there's a lot of slippery ego that can get in here when you think you're all in the spiritual realm, but yet you're trying to live here on earth school, right? So you've got to have the balance of both, one foot in each world so you can walk. So, oh man, I started, when I realized that, that's when I started looking at my spiritual arteries. I didn't call it that at that time, but I was looking at what was clogging me from being in the joy and finding the source of all my good. I was clogging my pipeline to all the good that was there through spirituality. I don't know if I'm going a little too deep on this. I hope not, because I really feel that this is a message I need to remind myself about over and over. And I think we all do, is that the allowing people to have their feelings, to have their emotions without getting codependent with it and getting in the misery. What is that Carl Anthony says in that song? If you're going to spend time in hell, don't invite me. Don't stop for tea. Right. So it's not saying, it's just, I'm not going to sit there and listen for hours and coddle you in that. Okay? And the same thing for ourselves. But we tend to, when we're feeling like that, who do we want to call? The people who are going to get right in there in the misery with us and say, man, Kathy, that is bad. That's a shame, right? Oh, I'm kind of going sidestepping here. So anyway, I was realizing that I wasn't experiencing that inner joy that I talked about last week. Remember, we've been talking about a couple weeks about finding and experiencing inner joy. When you are on your spiritual track, you are going to find this inner joy no matter what is happening around you. I see people right now who are dealing with issues with their grandchildren, and some of them are somewhat serious, some of them are in question. Nobody can find the reason of what's going on, and I still watch these people enjoy every single day. And it doesn't mean that they've canceled what's going on with their grandchild. No, but they know how to walk one foot in that world and one foot in this world so that they can be in joy. So anyway, what did I do? I started watching, back then, I started watching these older Unity teachers and older Unity ministers. And I would notice that no matter what, they had this inner joy and this inner light. And I started enrolling in more Unity classes because I wanted what they had. And they weren't telling me, cancel. They were walking me through in those classes, and I'm so grateful I was able to go out to Unity Village at the time and spend time in classes with these teachers, because their job, I felt, was to crack my heart open and to look at the feelings, to look at the resentments, to look at the anger. Let's go back to slide 1 real quick. That's okay. Our emotions stay clouded with anger, insecurity, self-pity. What is it next? Bitterness. It is the unforgiving attitudes and old wounds that block our progress. I had to look at the unforgiveness that was blocking my good. I had to look at forgiving several people in my life. And I also had to look at forgiving myself. And that was big. I would have told you, I don't need to forgive myself for anything. They did it. He did it. She did it. But then when you stop playing the victim and you realize, oh, I was mad at myself for feeling that way. I was mad at myself for holding that grudge. I was mad at myself for blocking my good. So there was a big part of forgiving me for my own feelings that I was harboring. Let's go to that next slide. I think the first step is to understand that forgiveness does not exonerate the perpetrator. Forgiveness liberates the victim. It is a gift that you give yourself. It is a gift that you give yourself. It is no accident that Sandy and I are on part 3 of this forgiveness workshop. Because why does unity, especially, but why do most churches spend a lot of time on forgiveness? They do a lot of sermons on forgiveness. Why is that? Because there is so much power in the freedom of letting go and releasing this stuff that we don't see, but it's like that character in the Snoopy comic strip, right? Pigpen, who's always got this cloud over following him, right? We all are carrying this, and we act like we don't see it back there, but it's there, and it's clogging your spiritual good, your pipeline to God. Spell it with 1 O or 2. Your pipeline to God, your pipeline to good is being blocked because of unforgiveness and because of being angry still at whatever that situation is. You know, I found this article, or a little ditty here, and I'm going to share it with you. It says, today I'm sharing a comedy piece of great truth. We are on a trip that we all wanted to take, but however, sometimes we take trips that we shouldn't. Have anybody been on a trip where you think, oh, I should not have gone? I can tell you right now, my husband is on a sailboat trip up in the North Channel, in the wilderness, on Lake Huron, and he's solo sailing. Why? Because I didn't want to go. I did it once, 3 years ago. I didn't need to do it anymore. I like marina life. I like to pull into a dock at night and have a shower. Yes, not just the lake. But anyway, so if I would have gone, I would have been on a trip that I wish I wouldn't have gone. I just know that. Okay, this is a trip that I do not want you to go on. This reading. I had not really planned on taking a trip this time of year, and yet I found myself packing rather hurriedly. This trip was going to be unpleasant, and I knew it in advance that no real good was going to come of it. I'm talking about my annual guilt trip. I got tickets to fly there on Wish I Had Airlines. Wish I Had Airlines. It was an extremely long flight. I kept my baggage, which I could not check. I chose to carry it myself all the way. It was weighed down with 1,000 memories of what might have been. No one greeted me as I entered the terminal. to the Regret City International Airport. I say international because people from all over the world come to this dismal town. As I checked into the Last Resort Hotel, I noticed that they would be hosting the year's most important social event, the annual pity party. I wasn't going to miss that great social occasion. Many of the town's leading citizens would be there. First, I met 3 members of the Dunn family. Should have done, would have done, could have done. Then I met the I Had family. Old Wish and his clan. Opportunities not seen in the present. Opportunities missed. Opportunities lost. The biggest family there was yesterday's. There were far too many of them to count, but each one had a very sad story to share. Then Shattered Dreams family made their appearance. And it's their fault that it regaled us with stories and excuses about how things had failed in their lives. Each story was loudly applauded by the "don't blame me, I couldn't help it." Well, to make a long story short, I went to this depressing party knowing that there would be no real benefit in doing so, and as usual, I became very depressed. As I thought about all the stories of failures brought back from the past, it occurred to me that all of this trip and the pity parties can be canceled by me. Knowing this, I left the city of regret immediately and left no forwarding address. Am I sorry for the mistakes that I've made in the past? Yes. But there is no physical way to undo them. So I urge you, if you're planning a trip to the city of regret, please cancel your reservation now. Instead of that, take a trip to the place that I have discovered called Starting Over Again. I like it so much that I have now taken up permanent residence there. My neighbors are the I Forgive Myself, the new startups. They're both so very helpful. Maybe we should cancel our reservations because we all tend to want to get on that flight, don't we? Even though we know what's coming, but we still tend to go there occasionally, or people want to grab us and say, "Come on, take this flight with me." That's a biggie. Come on, take this flight with me. Let's go to the next slide. Forgiveness does not mean you approve of bad behavior. It means you decide to free yourself from the ropes. If that is not what Sandy and I are really going to move to today, is freeing ourselves from those ropes of anger, resentment, and thoughts of retaliation. Not that any of you would ever have any thoughts of retaliation. Course in Miracles says, and I know I got to wind this up. Course in Miracles says, forgiveness is my function as the light of the world. I love that statement. And it doesn't mean that once you've forgiven, now you're done. It is a constant till the day you make your transition. I hope that you will remember, forgiveness is my function as the light of the world. Not just forgiving out there, but forgiving in here. Drop the should, could, and would from your language. And drop shoulding and coulding and woulding on other people. They should know better. They should be more enlightened. I was shoulding on people back then in those years when I was doing the cancel, right? That's a nice, quiet way of saying you should, right? Let's go to that last one, because I guess I was in the sailboat mode when I was looking. Your mind is like this water, my friend. When it is agitated, it becomes difficult to see. But if you allow it to settle, the answer becomes clear. I chose that because I've had several conversations with Michael this week. They have had hellish winds. And so they can choose to go out in that, or they can choose to anchor and hunker down in the middle, in a cove somewhere, right? Because they're in wilderness, and they choose, you can choose one way or the other. One way is danger, danger, and the other one is you just hunker down until it calms down. Boy, if we could all do that, huh? Just hunker down, the storm will pass. Whatever that storm is, it will pass. Because with God, all things are possible. Amen. And with that, let's close with the talk with our affirmation that I wrote for the week. For you to hopefully remember, let's say this together. I am in command of my choices. My path to oneness with God is clear. Okay? I am commanded by choices. My path, my arteries, my spiritual arteries are clear. Let's say this one more time. I am in command of my choices. My path to oneness with God is clear. Not to God, with God. Right? And it's not to God all things are possible. It's with God all things are possible. So I close with Namaste, which to me says that the Christ presence in me truly sees and honors that Christ presence in each and every one of you. Namaste.